Sarah Chen stood at the window of the human spaceship, watching the alien world grow larger. The planet looked like a giant blue crystal spinning in space. Cities made of glass and metal covered its surface, shining like diamonds in the starlight. This was Zepharos Prime, the capital world of the Zaphiran Empire. "We're almost there, Ambassador," said Captain Rodriguez from behind her. "Are you ready for this?" Sarah turned around and smiled. She was a small woman with short black hair and kind eyes. She wore the simple blue uniform of Earth's diplomatic corps. As ready as anyone can be when meeting aliens who've ruled this part of space for 1,000 years. The captain looked worried. "These Zaphirians are different from any aliens we've met before. They're proud, very proud, and they don't like it when people break their rules." "I've read all the files," Sarah said. "I know they're strict about their customs, but we need this trade agreement. Earth needs the resources they're offering." The spaceship UES Determination moved through the alien planet's atmosphere. Through the windows, Sarah could see the capital city below. It was huge, made entirely of crystal and metal that reached up toward the sky like frozen lightning. The buildings sang as the wind passed through them, creating music that sounded like nothing on Earth. The ship landed in a port made of black stone. Sarah gathered her small team, 2 security guards, a trade specialist, and a cultural advisor. They put on their best uniforms and checked their translation devices one more time. "Remember," said Dr. Kim, the cultural advisor, "never look directly at a high-ranking Zaphirian. It's considered very rude. Keep your eyes down when they speak." "That seems strange," said Sarah. "On Earth, looking someone in the eyes shows respect." "We're not on Earth anymore," Dr. Kim replied. They walked down the ship's ramp onto the alien world. The air tasted different, cleaner somehow. The gravity was lighter than Earth's, making each step feel like a small bounce. Waiting for them was a group of Zaphirian escorts. Sarah had seen pictures of Zaphirians before, but seeing them in person was amazing. They were tall, much taller than humans, and their bodies were made of what looked like living crystal. Light passed through them in beautiful patterns. When they moved, they made soft musical sounds like wind chimes. Their faces were long and elegant, with eyes that glowed like stars. The lead Zaphirian stepped forward. His crystal body was a deep blue color, which meant he was high-ranking. "Welcome, humans of Earth," he said. His voice sounded like singing. "I am Commander Thexal. The great Queen Empress Velthara has agreed to meet with you." "This is a great honor." Sarah bowed politely. "Thank you, Commander. I'm Ambassador Sarah Chen. We're honored to be here." Commander Thexal began walking toward the city. The human group followed him through streets made of crystal. Everything around them sparkled and sang. Other Zaphirians watched them pass, their glowing eyes curious but distant. "Your queen has ruled for a long time," Sarah said, trying to make conversation. 800 of your Earth years," Commander Thexal replied with pride. "She has seen empires rise and fall. She has brought peace to 100 worlds." They arrived at the palace, which was the most beautiful building Sarah had ever seen. It was carved from a single enormous crystal that changed color as the light hit it. The walls were so tall that the top was hidden in clouds. Inside, the palace was even more impressive. The floors were smooth like mirrors, and the walls showed moving pictures made of light. Music came from everywhere and nowhere, as if the building itself was singing. "The ceremony will begin soon," Commander Thexal explained. "First, you must be presented to the noble lords of the court. Then, if you are found worthy, you may speak with the Queen Empress." They entered a great hall filled with Zaphirians. All of them were tall and beautiful, their crystal bodies reflecting light in rainbow patterns. They stood in perfect rows, completely silent. At the front of the hall, on a raised platform, stood the most magnificent Zaphirian Sarah had ever seen. "That is Lord Kextar," Commander Thexal whispered. "He's the Queen's first advisor. You must bow to him and wait for him to speak first." Sarah walked forward with her team behind her. The hall was so quiet she could hear her own heartbeat. Lord Kextar was enormous, his crystal body a brilliant gold color. His eyes glowed like small suns. Sarah stopped before the platform and bowed deeply. "Great Lord Kextar," she said, "I bring greetings from Earth and all humanity." Lord Kextar looked down at her. "Human," he said, his voice like thunder, "you stand in the presence of greatness. Do you understand the honor that has been given to you?" "I do, my lord," Sarah replied. But then she made a mistake. As she spoke, Sarah looked up at Lord Kextar's face. It was a natural thing for humans to do. On Earth, looking at someone while talking to them showed that you were honest and respectful. But this was not Earth. The moment Sarah's eyes met Lord Kextar's, the entire hall gasped. The beautiful music stopped. Every Zaphiran in the room began to glow brighter, their crystal bodies resonating with shock and anger. Lord Kextar's voice became a roar that shook the crystal walls. "How dare you? How dare you look upon me with your inferior eyes?" Sarah stepped back, confused. I don't understand. I meant no disrespect. No disrespect? Lord Kextar's light grew so bright it hurt to look at him. You have committed the greatest insult possible. You have challenged my authority. You have mocked our most sacred laws. Dr. Kim grabbed Sarah's arm. Ambassador, we need to apologize immediately. This is a disaster. But Commander Thexal was already speaking into a device that looked like a singing crystal. Within moments, more Zaphiran guards arrived. They surrounded the human group, their bodies humming with threatening frequencies. The Queen Empress will hear of this insult, Lord Kextar declared. She will decide your punishment. Sarah tried to stay calm. Please, this was a misunderstanding. In human culture, looking at someone shows respect, not disrespect. We have different customs. Your ignorance is not an excuse. Lord Kextar's voice echoed through the hall. The law is the law. You will perform the ritual of degradation, or you will be declared enemies of the Empire, Dr. Kim whispered quickly to Sarah. The ritual of degradation means you have to crawl on the ground and declare that humans are inferior to Zaphirians. You have to say that Earth has no right to exist in the same universe as their empire. Sarah felt her face grow hot with anger. She had come here to build bridges between their peoples, not to humiliate herself and her entire species. I will not do that, she said quietly. The hall fell silent again. Lord Kextar stared at her in disbelief. What did you say? Sarah stood straighter, looking directly at him again. I said I will not do that. I will not crawl on the ground. I will not say that my people are inferior. I came here in peace, but I will not give up my dignity or my people's honor. The silence that followed was like the moment before an explosion. Then Lord Kextar began to laugh, a sound like breaking glass. Foolish human. You have sealed your fate. Guards, take them away! The crystal guards moved forward, but Sarah did not run. She stood her ground as they surrounded her team. Dr. Kim was shaking, and the security guards reached for weapons they knew they could not use. You will all be imprisoned, Lord Kextar announced, and tomorrow you, Ambassador Chen, will have the honor of appearing before Queen Empress Velthera herself. She will decide whether you live or die. As the guards led them away, Sarah looked back at the Great Hall. She had come to prevent a war between Earth and the Zaphirian Empire. Instead, she might have started one. But she could not regret standing up for human dignity. Some things were worth fighting for, even if the fight seemed impossible to win. The Crystal Palace sang around them as they walked toward the dungeons, but now the music sounded like a funeral song. The prison cell was made of the same crystal as everything else in the palace, but this crystal was dark and cold. Sarah sat on a hard bench while her team tried to sleep on the floor. The walls hummed with a low sound that made it hard to rest. Through the crystal bars, she could see Zaphirian guards walking back and forth. We're in real trouble, aren't we? Asked Marcus, one of the security guards. Dr. Kim looked up from where she sat in the corner. Her face was pale and worried. The Queen Empress hasn't seen visitors from outside species in over 50 years. The last ones who insulted the court were, well, let's just say their home planet doesn't exist anymore. Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold crystal walls. She destroyed an entire planet because someone was rude? The Zaphirians have weapons we can't even imagine, Dr. Kim explained. They can make stars go out. They can turn planets into dust with a single ship. Their technology is thousands of years ahead of ours. Captain Rodriguez spoke through his communication device from the ship. Ambassador, our sensors are picking up massive energy readings from the palace. Whatever's in there, it's more powerful than anything we've seen before. Sarah closed her eyes and tried to think. Earth was counting on this mission. Her planet needed the rare metals that only the Zaphirian Empire could provide. Without this trade deal, Earth's expansion into space would stop. Millions of people would suffer. The next morning, Crystal Guards came to take Sarah away. They left her team in the cell, which she knew was probably the last time she would see them alive. The guards led her through corridors she hadn't seen before. These passages were older than the rest of the palace, carved from black crystal that seemed to absorb light. Strange symbols covered the walls, glowing faintly with their own inner fire. The air felt heavy, as if the walls themselves were watching her. Where are you taking me? Sarah asked. The lead guard's crystal body hummed softly before he answered. To the heart chamber, where the Queen Empress holds court with those who face judgment. They walked for what felt like hours, going deeper and deeper into the palace. Sarah noticed that the crystal around them was getting darker and more complex. The wall showed moving pictures of Zaphiran history, great battles in space, the conquest of alien worlds, the building of their vast empire. Finally, they reached a massive door made of crystal so dark it was almost black. The guards stopped walking. Sarah could feel them trembling, their crystal bodies vibrating with what looked like fear. Is something wrong? She asked. The heart chamber is difficult for us, one guard said quietly. The Queen Empress's presence is very strong there. It affects our resonance patterns. Sarah didn't understand what that meant, but she could see that the guards were scared. These beings who had conquered half the galaxy were afraid to go through that door. The door opened by itself, revealing a corridor that seemed to stretch into darkness forever. The guards gestured for Sarah to go forward, but they stayed behind. You're not coming with me? Sarah asked. We cannot, the lead guard said. Our bodies would not survive the energy in that chamber. You must go alone. Sarah walked into the darkness. Behind her, she heard the massive door close with a sound like thunder. She was alone now, walking through a tunnel made of crystal so black it seemed to eat light. As she walked, strange things began to happen. The air around her started to shimmer like water. Colors that had no names danced at the edges of her vision. She felt dizzy, as if the world was spinning in directions that shouldn't exist. The tunnel ended at another door, this one made of crystal that looked like frozen starlight. It opened as she approached, and Sarah stepped into the most amazing room she had ever seen. The heart chamber was enormous, bigger than any building on Earth. The walls curved up and up until they disappeared in shadows above. But it wasn't the size that took her breath away. It was what filled the room. Energy moved through the air like liquid lightning. Colors flowed across the walls in patterns that hurt to look at directly. The floor beneath her feet was made of crystal so clear it looked like she was walking on nothing at all. And in the center of it all, on a throne carved from a single diamond the size of a house, sat Queen Empress Velthara. She was magnificent and terrible. Where other Zaphirians were tall, she was gigantic, at least 12 feet high. Her crystal body wasn't just one color, but many, shifting and changing like an aurora in the night sky. Light poured from her in waves that made the air itself sing. Her face was beautiful and alien, with features that seemed carved by an artist who understood perfection. Her eyes were like small galaxies, deep and full of swirling stars. When she looked at Sarah, it felt like being examined by the universe itself. So, the Queen Empress said, and her voice was like music and thunder and the sound of planets being born. You are the human who dares to insult my court. Sarah tried to answer, but found she could barely speak. The energy in the room pressed down on her like a weight. Your Majesty, I meant no insult. Queen Velthara leaned forward on her throne. Yet you looked upon Lord Kekstar with your alien eyes. You challenged the order that has kept peace in this galaxy for 1,000 years. I don't understand your ways. Sarah managed to say, on my world, looking at someone shows respect. Your world, the Queen Empress repeated, and there was something like amusement in her cosmic voice. A small planet on the edge of nowhere, populated by creatures who have barely learned to leave their own system. What could your world possibly teach an empire that spans 100 star systems? Sarah felt anger growing inside her, pushing back against the overwhelming presence of the alien queen. My world has learned something your empire seems to have forgotten. The Queen Empress's eyes flared brighter. Speak, little human. What wisdom do you think your species possesses? We've learned that different doesn't mean inferior, Sarah said, her voice growing stronger. We've learned that when people work together, despite their differences, they can do amazing things. Your empire rules through fear and rigid laws. My people rule through cooperation and respect. The air in the chamber began to vibrate. The crystal walls hummed with increasing intensity. Queen Velthara stood up from her throne, and Sarah felt the weight of her presence like a mountain falling on her. You dare lecture me? The Queen Empress's voice shook the entire chamber. I have ruled for 800 years. I have brought order to chaos, peace to war, civilization to barbarians. And you, a creature whose species has existed for mere moments in cosmic time, think you can tell me about governing? Sarah should have been terrified. Any sane person would have fallen to their knees and begged for mercy. But something was happening in the chamber that neither of them understood yet. The energy patterns were changing, becoming more chaotic. The perfect crystal harmonics that Zaphirians loved were breaking down into something new and strange. "I'm not trying to lecture you," Sarah said, taking a step forward instead of backward. "I'm trying to understand you. You say you brought peace, but my people are in prison for a misunderstanding. You say you brought civilization, but your civilization requires others to crawl on the ground to prove their worth. Is that really peace? Is that really civilization?" The Queen Empress raised one crystalline hand, and Sarah could feel power gathering around her like a storm about to break. This was it. This was where she died for speaking the truth. But something was wrong. The energy in the chamber was becoming unstable. The perfect crystal formations on the walls were developing cracks. And for the first time in 800 years, Queen Empress Velthara looked uncertain. "What?" she began, her voice no longer perfectly controlled. "What are you doing?" Sarah looked around in confusion. "I'm not doing anything. I'm just talking to you." But something was definitely happening. The air itself seemed to be breaking apart and reforming. Reality was becoming flexible in ways that should have been impossible. And at the center of it all stood a small human woman, who had no idea that her very existence was about to change the fate of an entire galaxy. The chaos in the heart chamber was getting worse. Cracks spread across the perfect crystal walls like spiderwebs. The beautiful colors flowing through the air began to twist into shapes that hurt Sarah's eyes to look at. The music that came from the walls turned into a discordant noise that sounded like screaming. Queen Empress Velthara stepped down from her throne, her massive form moving with liquid grace despite the chaos around them. But Sarah could see something in the alien queen's star-filled eyes that shocked her. Fear. "You must stop this," the Queen Empress said, her voice losing its perfect control. "Whatever you are doing to my chamber, you must stop it now." "I don't know what's happening," Sarah protested. "I'm just standing here." But that wasn't entirely true. Something was happening inside Sarah herself. She could feel energy moving through her body in ways she had never experienced before. It was as if her heartbeat was creating ripples in the air around her. Every breath she took seemed to push against reality itself. The Queen Empress backed away from Sarah, and for the first time in 800 years, the ruler of a galactic empire looked afraid. "Impossible," she whispered. "You're just a primitive creature from a backwater world. You shouldn't be able to affect our dimensional matrix." "You're what?" Sarah asked. But even as she spoke, she could feel something vast and complex pressing against the edges of her mind. It was like trying to understand a song by feeling the vibrations in the ground. Around them, the chamber's ancient systems began to fail. Warning lights flashed in the walls and alarms sang in frequencies that made Sarah's teeth ache. Through the crystal floor, she could see other parts of the palace. Zaphirian guards were running through corridors, their crystal bodies resonating with panic. "The readings are impossible," one guard shouted to another as they ran past below. "The quantum flux generators are overloading. The dimensional anchors are failing." Sarah didn't understand the words, but she could see their effect. The very air in the chamber was beginning to ripple like water. Strange lights danced at the corners of her vision, and she could swear she was seeing into other places, other times. Queen Velthara moved to a wall covered in complex crystal controls. Her hands moved quickly over patterns that meant nothing to Sarah. But the Queen's movements were becoming desperate. "The containment fields are breaking down," she said, more to herself than to Sarah. 800 years of careful balance, and one human is destroying it all just by being here. "I don't want to destroy anything," Sarah said. "Just tell me what's happening and maybe I can help fix it." The Queen Empress turned to look at her, and Sarah saw something incredible in those cosmic eyes. Wonder mixed with terror. "You really don't know, do you? You don't understand what you are?" Before Sarah could ask what that meant, a new voice echoed through the chamber. It was Lord Kekstar, speaking through the communication system from somewhere else in the palace. His voice was high with panic. "My queen! The entire palace is becoming unstable. The harmonic resonance that keeps our bodies coherent is being disrupted. We're losing structural integrity throughout the building." Queen Velthara spoke into a crystal device. "Can you identify the source of the disruption?" "It's coming from the heart chamber, Your Majesty. From the human. She's generating quantum fluctuations that our systems can't compensate for. It's as if she exists partially outside our dimensional framework." Sarah felt a chill of understanding begin to dawn. "You mean I'm dangerous to you?" My being here is hurting you? The Queen Empress nodded slowly. Your species, human Sarah Chen, should not exist. According to our understanding of physics, according to the laws that govern reality itself, creatures like you cannot survive in this universe. Yet here you stand. The chamber shuddered around them, and Sarah could hear crystal structures breaking deeper in the palace. I'm sorry, she said. I didn't know. I'll leave right away if that will help. It's too late for that, Queen Velthara replied. The process has begun. Your quantum signature is resonating with our crystal matrix. The longer you remain here, the more unstable everything becomes. But if you leave now, the sudden change might cause even more damage. Sarah looked around at the chaos she had unknowingly created. Through the crystal floor, she could see Zaphiran citizens fleeing their homes as buildings began to sing in frequencies that caused them pain. This beautiful civilization was being torn apart just because she existed near it. There has to be something we can do, she said. There has to be a solution. The Queen Empress was quiet for a long moment, working frantically at her crystal controls. There is one possibility, she finally said. But it would require me to do something no Zaphiran ruler has ever done before. What? I would have to trust you completely, and you would have to trust me. Sarah didn't hesitate. Tell me what to do. Queen Velthara stepped away from the controls and walked slowly towards Sarah. With each step, the energy disturbances in the chamber grew stronger. Our bodies are made of crystalline matrices that exist in multiple dimensions simultaneously. Your human form exists primarily in what you call normal spacetime, but your consciousness creates ripples in dimensions we can perceive but you cannot. I still don't understand. Think of it like this, the Queen Empress said, stopping just a few feet away from Sarah. Imagine you are a creature made of water and I am a creature made of electricity. Normally we could never touch without one of us being destroyed, but under the right conditions, electricity and water can create something new. Sarah could feel the power radiating from the alien queen's crystalline form. It was like standing next to a star. What kind of something new? We don't know. It has never been tried before. But the alternative is the destruction of my palace, my capital city, and possibly my entire world. Around them, the chamber continued to shake and twist. Reality was becoming increasingly unstable, and Sarah could see cracks forming not just in the walls but in the air itself. Through those cracks she glimpsed other places, alien worlds under strange suns, fast ships moving through star-filled space, and things that might have been other versions of herself standing in other chambers talking to other queens. What do I need to do? Sarah asked. Queen Velthara extended one crystalline hand toward her. Touch me, she said simply, and do not let go no matter what happens. Sarah looked at the offered hand. It glowed with inner light and seemed to contain entire galaxies. She could feel the power in it, the alien intelligence that had ruled an empire for 8 centuries. This being could destroy her with a thought, could reduce Earth to cosmic dust without effort. But Sarah also remembered why she was here. She thought of Earth, of the billions of people counting on her to succeed. She thought of her team, trapped in a crystal cell somewhere in this palace. She thought of the possibility that 2 very different species might find a way to understand each other. She reached out and grasped Queen Velthara's crystalline hand. The moment their skin touched, the universe exploded. Energy flowed between them like a river of liquid starlight. Sarah felt her consciousness expand beyond her human form, touching something vast and ancient and utterly alien. At the same time, she felt the Queen Empress's awareness flowing into her mind, bringing with it memories of worlds being born, of civilizations rising and falling, of the terrible loneliness of ruling alone for centuries. The chamber around them filled with light so bright it should have blinded them both. But instead of destruction, something wonderful began to happen. The chaotic energy that had been tearing the room apart started to form new patterns. The cracks in reality began to heal themselves. And for the first time in the history of either species, a human and a Zaphiran truly understood each other. The light that filled the heart chamber was unlike anything Sarah had ever seen. It wasn't just bright. It was alive, flowing between her and Queen Velthara like a bridge made of pure energy. Through that bridge, their minds touched in ways that should have been impossible. Sarah felt herself experiencing life through Zaphiran senses. She could perceive dimensions that human eyes couldn't see, hear harmonies in the crystal walls that told the history of the empire, feel the quantum fluctuations that her human presence created rippling through reality, like stones thrown into still water. At the same time, she could feel Queen Velthara experiencing human emotions for the first time. The alien queen gasped as she felt what humans called hope, that strange belief that tomorrow could be better than today. She trembled as she experienced curiosity, the driving need to learn and explore that pushed humans to leave their safe planet and venture into the unknown. "This is impossible," Queen Velthara whispered, but her voice now carried notes that hadn't been there before. Wonder, excitement, and something that might have been joy. Through their connection, Sarah began to understand what made the Zaphiran Empire work. Their civilization was built on harmony, not just social harmony but literal harmonic resonance. Every Zaphiran was like a crystal tuning fork, vibrating in perfect synchronization with every other member of their species. This is what gave them their incredible technology, their long lives, and their ability to communicate across vast distances instantaneously. But it also made them rigid. Change was dangerous because it could disrupt the delicate balance they had maintained for thousands of years. This is why they feared humans, because human consciousness created chaos in their perfectly ordered quantum fields. "Your people are like music," Sarah said, still holding the Queen's crystalline hand. "Beautiful, complex music that's been playing the same song for centuries. And your people are like..." Queen Velthara struggled to find words for what she was experiencing through their link. Like storms, chaotic, unpredictable but full of energy and possibility. Around them, the heart chamber was transforming. The cracks in the walls were healing, but they were healing into new patterns. Where before everything had been perfectly symmetric, now there were irregular designs that somehow looked more alive. The harsh light was softening into warmer colors that seemed to dance and play instead of simply shining. But the transformation wasn't limited to the chamber. Through the crystal floor, Sarah could see changes spreading throughout the palace. Zaphiran guards who had been fleeing in panic were stopping and staring in wonder. Their crystalline bodies were taking on new hues, and their voices were creating harmonies that had never existed before. Lord Kextar's voice came through the communication system again, but now it sounded different, confused but amazed. "My queen, the quantum fluctuations are stabilizing, but into patterns we've never seen before. It's as if our dimensional matrix is evolving." Queen Velthara spoke into her crystal device, but she didn't let go of Sarah's hand. "Kextar, gather the noble council. Tell them to come to the heart chamber immediately. Your Majesty, the energy readings are still too dangerous for normal Zaphirians to approach." "They're not dangerous anymore," the Queen replied, and Sarah could hear the wonder in her voice. "They're just new." As they waited, Sarah felt more memories flowing through their connection. She saw the Queen Empress as a young Zaphiran, taking the throne after her predecessor was killed in a war against a species that no longer existed. She felt the weight of responsibility that had shaped 800 years of careful, conservative rule. The Queen had kept her people safe by maintaining strict order, by never allowing anything to change that might disrupt their delicate harmony. But she had also kept them isolated, cutting them off from the growth that comes from meeting new ideas and new ways of thinking. "You were protecting them," Sarah said softly. "I thought I was," Queen Velthara replied. "But protection became prison. Stability became stagnation. I ruled an empire, but I forgot how to let it grow." Through the bond between them, the Queen experienced Sarah's memories too. She felt what it was like to grow up on Earth, where humans constantly struggled with conflict and disagreement, but somehow managed to work together despite their differences. She experienced the excitement of humanity's first steps into space, the fear and hope of meeting alien civilizations, the determination to find peaceful solutions even when violence seemed easier. "Your species never learned to achieve perfect harmony," Queen Velthara observed. "But you learned something else. You learned to create harmony from discord, to find unity and diversity." "We had to," Sarah explained. "We're all stuck on the same small planet. We had to learn to get along, or we would have destroyed ourselves." The chamber doors opened, and the noble council of the Zaphiran Empire began to enter, but something was different about them. They moved more slowly than usual, and their crystal bodies showed new patterns of light that pulsed in rhythm with their hearts instead of maintaining perfect steadiness. Lord Kextar was among them, and when he saw Sarah and the Queen still holding hands, his reaction surprised everyone. Instead of anger or fear, His crystal form resonated with what could only be called curiosity. "My queen," he said, his voice carrying new harmonics. "What has happened here?" "I feel different, we all do." "We are changing, Kextar," Queen Velthara replied. "For the first time in 1,000 years, we are growing instead of simply maintaining." Another noble stepped forward, Lady Nexara, whose silver crystal body now showed spirals of gold. "The human is no longer causing disruption." "How is this possible?" Sarah looked at the assembled nobles, these ancient beings who had ruled star systems before humans had discovered fire. "We're learning to harmonize," she said. "Not by becoming the same, but by finding ways for our differences to work together instead of against each other." Queen Velthara finally released Sarah's hand, but the energy bridge between them didn't disappear. Instead, it faded to a gentle glow that continued to connect them. "My lords and ladies," the queen announced, "I have decided to accept the human alliance proposal." The nobles looked shocked. Lord Kexitar spoke for all of them. "Your Majesty, yesterday this human insulted our most sacred laws. Today you wish to make her an ally?" "Yesterday I thought our laws were more important than understanding," Queen Velthara replied. "Today I have learned that understanding is the most sacred law of all." Sarah felt a surge of hope, but she also felt the fear and uncertainty of the Zaphirian nobles. Through her expanded senses, she could perceive their worry that change would destroy the stability they had known for so long. "Your Majesty," she said carefully, "perhaps we should start small. Instead of a full alliance, what if we began with an exchange program? A few humans could come here to learn about your technology and culture, and a few Zaphirians could visit Earth to learn about ours." Queen Velthara smiled, an expression that looked strange but wonderful on her crystalline features. "Wisdom from chaos," she said approvingly. "Yes, we will start small and grow carefully." But even as they spoke, alarms began sounding throughout the palace. Through the communication system came the urgent voice of the palace's defense commander. "Your Majesty, we have ships approaching. A Zaphirian battle fleet is requesting permission to land. They say they've come to rescue you from the human threat." Sarah felt her heart sink. Someone had sent word of the crisis to the military, and now a battle fleet was coming to save the queen from her. The fragile peace they had just created was about to be tested by beings who hadn't experienced the transformation that had taken place in the heart chamber. Queen Velthara stood tall, her form blazing with new patterns of light that mixed order and chaos in beautiful combinations. "It seems, Ambassador Sarah Chen, that our real test is just beginning." Through the windows of the heart chamber, Sarah could see the dark shapes of Zaphirian warships descending from the sky. Each ship was the size of a human city and carried enough firepower to destroy worlds. They had come to rescue their queen from what they believed was a terrible threat. They had no idea that the greatest threat to the old ways wasn't the human ambassador. It was the possibility of change itself. The Zaphirian warships filled the sky above the capital city like dark storm clouds. Each ship was a masterpiece of crystal and metal, beautiful and terrible at the same time. Their weapons charged with energy that made the air itself hum with dangerous frequencies. In the heart chamber, Queen Velthara stood before the great window watching her own military prepare to rescue her. Her crystalline form pulsed with the new patterns of light that her contact with Sarah had created chaotic but beautiful spirals that danced through her transparent body. "Admiral Zekmor is commanding the fleet," Lord Kextar reported, reading from a crystal communication device. "He says he received word that the palace was under attack by alien forces that were corrupting our quantum matrix." "Technically, he's not wrong," Sarah said with a nervous smile. "I did corrupt your quantum matrix. I just didn't mean to." Queen Velthara turned from the window, and Sarah was amazed to see something she had never expected to see on an alien face. A sense of humor. "Perhaps we should not lead with that information when we speak to the Admiral." The communication device chimed with an incoming message. Admiral Zekmor's voice filled the chamber, deep and commanding and absolutely certain of his purpose. "Queen Empress Velthara, this is Admiral Zekmor of the Third Fleet. We have come to eliminate the human threat and restore order to the capital. Please signal your location so we can extract you safely." Queen Velthara picked up the communication device. When she spoke, her voice carried the full authority of 800 years of rule, but it also carried the new harmonic she had learned from her connection with Sarah. "Admiral Zekmor, there is no threat to eliminate. I am safe and in complete control of the situation. There was a long pause before the Admiral replied. Your Majesty, our sensors show massive quantum disruptions throughout the palace. The harmonic resonance that protects your form has been compromised. You may not be thinking clearly. Sarah could see the Queen Empress's eyes flash with anger, but when she spoke, her voice remained calm. Admiral, I assure you that my thinking has never been clearer. The quantum disruptions you detected were not an attack. They were an evolution. Evolution? The Admiral's voice carried disbelief and growing alarm. Your Majesty, with respect, evolution is dangerous. Change disrupts the harmony that has kept our empire stable for 1,000 years. And that stability has become stagnation. Queen Velthara replied firmly. Admiral, I order you to stand down and return to your patrol duties. Another pause. When Admiral Zekmor spoke again, his tone had changed. It was still respectful, but Sarah could hear the steel underneath. I'm sorry, Your Majesty, but I cannot obey that order. The corruption in your quantum matrix has clearly affected your judgment. For the good of the Empire, I must remove the source of the disruption. Through the window, Sarah could see the warships taking targeting positions. Energy began to build in their weapons as they prepared to fire on the palace. He's going to attack, Sarah said quietly. He's going to destroy the palace to save you. Queen Velthara closed her eyes for a moment, and Sarah could feel through their lingering connection the weight of the decision she was making. When she opened them again, her resolve was absolute. Kextar, open a communication channel to all ships in the fleet, she commanded, and activate the palace's harmonic amplifiers. If Admiral Zekmor wants to see what evolution looks like, then we will show him. Lord Kextar's hands moved over the crystal controls, and suddenly Queen Velthara's voice was being broadcast to every ship in the fleet and throughout the capital city below. Citizens of the Zaphiran Empire, she began, her voice resonating through crystal communication networks that spanned the planet. For 1,000 years we have maintained perfect order. We have preserved our civilization through strict adherence to ancient laws and unchanging traditions. We have been safe, stable, and isolated. Sarah could see through the chamber's windows that Zaphirians throughout the city had stopped what they were doing to listen. Their crystalline forms glowed as they focused on their ruler's words. Today, Queen Velthara continued, I have learned something that our ancestors could not have imagined. There is a species in this galaxy that lives without perfect harmony, yet creates wonders we have never dreamed of. They thrive in chaos, grow through conflict, and find strength in their differences. Admiral Zekmor's voice interrupted the broadcast. Your Majesty, you're describing barbarians, not a civilization. Am I? Queen Velthara asked. Then explain how these barbarians traveled across space to offer us friendship instead of conquest. Explain how they sent one small, unarmed diplomat instead of a battle fleet. Sarah stepped forward, even though she knew that revealing herself might make things worse. Admiral Zekmor, my name is Sarah Chen, and I represent the planet Earth. I came here hoping to build trade relationships between our peoples. I made a mistake with your customs, but I never intended any harm. Through the communication system, she could hear gasps from the crews of the warships. This was the first time most of them had heard a human voice, you see, Admiral Zekmor said, his voice growing more urgent. The creature speaks our language. It has infected our communication systems. Your Majesty, the corruption is spreading, but Queen Velthara was ready for this. The creature speaks our language because she learned it before coming here. She studied our culture, our history, our customs. She came prepared to understand us, not to conquer us. The Queen paused, and when she spoke again, her voice carried a new power that made the crystal walls of the chamber sing in harmony. Admiral, I want you to do something for me. I want you to scan the palace again with your sensors, but this time don't look for threats. Look for patterns. There was silence for several minutes as the Admiral followed his Queen's order. When he spoke again, confusion had replaced certainty in his voice. Your Majesty, the quantum readings are stabilizing, but into configurations we've never seen before. It's as if the palace's harmonic matrix has learned to incorporate chaos into its structure. Exactly, Queen Velthara said. We haven't been corrupted, Admiral. We've been enhanced. The rigid patterns that have defined our civilization for 1,000 years are learning to grow, to change, to evolve. Sarah felt the moment when Admiral Zekmor's certainty finally cracked. Through the communication system, she could hear him talking quietly to his officers, trying to understand readings that contradicted everything he thought he knew. Permission to beam down to the palace, Your Majesty? He finally asked. I need to see this for myself. Permission granted, Queen Velthara replied. But come alone, and come with an open mind. Within minutes, Admiral Zekmor materialized in the heart chamber in a column of crystalline light. He was a massive Zaphiran, his body a deep blue crystal shot through with silver patterns that marked him as a military leader. But the moment he appeared, Sarah could see the change begin. The Admiral's perfect crystalline structure started to resonate with the new patterns that filled the chamber. His rigid military bearing softened slightly, and his eyes widened as he experienced for the first time in his life the sensation of genuine curiosity instead of simple duty. By the ancient harmonies, he whispered, looking around the transformed chamber. What has happened here? We learned something new, Queen Velthara said simply. We learned that harmony doesn't have to mean sameness, and that change doesn't have to mean destruction. Sarah stepped forward, offering her hand to the Admiral just as she had to the Queen. Would you like to understand what we've discovered? Admiral Zekmor looked at her extended hand with wonder and fear. Sarah could see him struggling with 1,000 years of conditioning that told him aliens were dangerous, that change was evil, that the old ways were the only safe ways. But then Queen Velthara placed her crystalline hand on his shoulder. Trust me, old friend. Trust your queen, and trust yourself. Admiral Zekmor slowly reached out and grasped Sarah's hand. The light that filled the chamber this time was gentler than before, but no less transformative. Through their connection, the Admiral experienced human courage, human creativity, human hope. He felt what it was like to live in a species that had learned to find strength in diversity instead of uniformity. And Sarah felt his memories too. The loneliness of command, the weight of protecting an empire, the fear that any change might destroy everything he had sworn to preserve. When they finally released each other's hands, Admiral Zekmor stood straighter than before, but his crystalline body now showed new patterns of light that pulsed with life instead of rigid order. My queen, he said formally, then smiled in a way that transformed his stern features. I believe it's time for the Zaphiran Empire to make some new friends. Queen Velthara turned to Sarah, and in her ancient eyes was a warmth that had never been there before. Ambassador Sarah Chen of Earth, on behalf of the Zaphiran Empire, I officially accept your proposal for alliance between our peoples. Sarah felt tears in her eyes as she bowed deeply to the alien queen. Your Majesty, I accept on behalf of humanity. May this be the beginning of a friendship that spans the stars. As the two leaders spoke, their words were broadcast throughout the empire. On 1,000 worlds,